That, over time, will sip the stored energy off of the body and do it in a healthy, sustainable, even and balanced way. There are two primary storage centers for energy in our body. The first is our musculature and our bones, known as our skeletal system. And that is the stored up energy that we are able to use on a moment's notice. It is there for us to be able to be physically active. We also have a place where our body stores energy that is stored underneath our skin and around our intestinal organs. And the storage there is about a more sustained use level of stored energy. It takes a little longer for our body to start to be able to use the energy that's stored in our body fat, whereas our skeletal muscle system, we can use that energy more rapidly. And so oftentimes we'll have clients who want to lose weight and they want to drop body fat. They are aware that the lifestyle that moves them towards a lower body fat level and a healthier body fat level and a more evenly distributed body fat level has many positive benefits, both for how they feel and perform, as well as for how helpful they can be to others. The first thing we need to understand is that our appetite is constantly guiding how much food we need and where we're going to store the energy that's in excess of what we put into our skeletal muscle system and that we use for other biological processes in the moment. And so we've had other episodes where we talk about suffering in the form of war and famine. And so suffering and war and famine were part of our evolution. They were part of how we survived more difficult times as hunter-gatherer tribes, how we survived more difficult times when farming was our main source of food for us and our family. And we needed to survive war and famine. And in order to do so, we needed to change our physiology. And so the physiology of a peaceful and inspired human is a little different than the physiology of a slightly more suffering, more uncomfortable human. If we were in war, we would have to have unrelenting physical output, no matter how uncomfortable we were, because it was life or death. What does that mean? I would need to run away from a battle I was losing, or I would have to keep fighting despite the fact that I was incredibly uncomfortable. Now, this physical activity of escaping and this physical exertion of fighting, even though I'm losing, meant that I had to use my arms and legs. And if I was in a sustained war environment over and over and over, evading a tribe or having to battle over and over, barely escaping with my life, if I were to take my body and add 10-pound weights to my wrists and 10-pound weights to my ankles and then have to fight, that would be infinitely tougher than if I had 40 pounds packed against my torso like a weight vest. And so our physiology helps us there. If our body thinks we're in war, it's going to strip the extra weight off of our arms and legs and it's going to pack it around our torso. What does that mean? That means that somebody who is in war has extra belly fat. Somebody who is challenged beyond their means is going to have thinner arms and legs, maybe even veiny and muscular arms and legs, but they're going to have extra right around here. And when they have extra right around here, they go to some trainers and they might say, hey, I want to lose this here. And some of those trainers might say, we can't spot reduce. We can't drop the fat from there. Or they'll say, it's really tough to drop the fat from the belly. What that means is that you have to get your body out of that warring state. And so part of being out of a warring state means that you're not eating on the run. It means that you're getting to a calm, peaceful, settled place and eating what you're hungry for when you're hungry for it. And in your exercise, you're not overly challenging yourself. And so when you see somebody who has extra fat around the belly, extra fat around the abdomen, but thinner in their arms and legs, if you are one of those people, following the appetite awareness spectrum will help that process. When you wake up in the morning and you aren't hungry, your body will allow you to release and use body fat evenly from the body. So you wake up in the morning, you're not hungry, you allow yourself not to eat, you engage in some exercise appropriately, and when you engage in that exercise appropriately, your body uses the energy that you have stored to help that repair and rebuilding process. Later, you'll be hungry. And when you're hungry, you'll eat the amount that you're hungry for. And when you eat the amount that you're hungry for, you're peaceful and inspired back and forth. Instead of adding extra stored energy just to the belly, it'll add just a little to the arms and legs to create a more balanced physiology. Then, when you go back into the fasting and you stimulate yourself again, you'll release and use that stored energy evenly. But because you're a little lower on your arms and legs already, your hormones will start to change and shift, and it'll start to take some of that off of the trunk. And so as it takes it off of the trunk and it adds it more evenly, and it takes it off of the trunk and it adds it more evenly, over time, your physiology starts to balance itself out. The extra 40 pounds that you had here turns into 2 pounds in each of these places, and then you drop 32 pounds of extra belly fat. That's the ideal. Now, sometimes we're thinking to ourselves, oh, I need to fast to lose some weight. I've been eating too much. I've been feasting. I need to fast, which means I'm going to set this 16-hour window where I'm not going to eat. Well, if you set a particular window where you're not going to eat, if you set a particular number of days a week that you're not going to eat, if you say, I'm going to cut out carbs, or I'm going to cut out this other type of food, you might be putting your body into famine. Meaning if your body needs some of those carbs and you don't feed them and you restrain yourself, you don't eat, you're going into famine. Now, what happens in famine? You are going to release and use your stored energy. That's correct. So when you're hungry and you don't eat, your body weight's coming down. So the scale might show some improvement, but what's it doing? It's releasing it from the arms and legs. So the fat that you had on the arms and legs starts to get released and used. Now, when it gets released and used, eventually it's going to start to alter your physiology so that then later on, when you try to normalize, you're going to have extra on the belly. Now, part of not eating when you're hungry, that fasting, but not actually fasting, putting your body into the famine, when you get to that place, it starts to reduce. You feel weak, which means your boundaries are limited. It means that what you could normally hold yourself in restraint, you no longer are able to restrain, and you become reactive. And part of reactive means you overeat. So you've held back. You've done such a great job on your long fasting streak. You've had 40 straight days of only eating in a 6-hour window and restraining your body, and you've lost 20 pounds. But that whole time, your body is actually getting a little weaker and a little more reactive. And all you need is one birthday party for a friend. All you need is that one long weekend where you go out of town. All you need is that one slip up where you have that treat that you've been restraining yourself from. That reactivity puts you into feast. You overeat. You start eating something and your appetite goes away, but you keep eating. Now we've got a big increase in our stored energy. We went from releasing it from the arms and legs to a huge increase. And because your hormones are imbalanced, you lose it from the arms and legs, and that big increase puts it right on the trunk. What does this look like in real life? This is somebody who starts the year great. They do an awesome job through January. They do an awesome job into the summer. They are more shredded than they've ever been, but they still got a little bit of this right here. They're aware of it. That's just going to go away next year. But they're slowly putting themselves through a famine. And as they slowly put themselves through the famine, and then the holidays roll around, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, time with family, slower physical output. They go from famine, they had the best year they've had so far. They've lost the most weight that they've had so far, and they get into the feast season. And they overeat, and what they had done was lost 20 pounds. Now they add 25 pounds and an extra 5 pounds around the trunk. They're demotivated. They feel weak and reactive. They feel slow and lazy when the new year comes around. They're like, oh, that's just aging. And that process slowly continues until a few years later, it's the new year, and they start the whole process again. Super motivated, but again, they go through that feast and famine cycle. What we need to do instead is hold accountability to our appetite awareness, acceptance, and engagement. We've got to show up and hydrate ourselves and expand our breath. We've got to be super aware of when we're hungry and when we're not. And then we've got to eat when we're hungry. We've got to not eat when we're not hungry. That, over time, will sip the stored energy off of the body and do it in a healthy, sustainable, even and balanced way that's going to give you a physique that is inspired and inspiring to others. It's going to give you mental peace. It's going to give you a sense of calm within your body. And that sense of calm and that sense of peace is going to be so helpful to all those around you. Instead of being lazy or reactive, you're going to be a beacon of health and truth to help your family, to help your friends, to help your coworkers, so that this whole universe can start to level up.